All right, welcome back. Another looking for work session. My name is Mike Roberts, and super excited to answer your questions this morning and see if I can be helpful in any way. So, for those of you that are joining for the first time, this is the first time we're doing it on LinkedIn. So, LinkedIn Live should be working, I guess. We'll see if anybody has a chance to pop on there and let us know. Um, the best way to get questions from me is just to drop them into the chat channel. The whole goal of this might be an hour is to give you an opportunity to ask whatever questions you have about finding a first technical role. And we generally focus on software engineering, but and I know a few of the other roles, so it could be able to add some value there as well. The best place, again, to ask these questions is in the chat. I've hired lots of developers. I've helped lots of developers get their first opportunity at tech companies. So I know a little bit about this process. And yes, we're on LinkedIn. So big shout out to the LinkedIn folks that finally let me in, or we'll see, see how it goes. um, but super excited to be on yet another platform where we can share this and just provide a better opportunity for folks to get their questions answered. So that's the mission, is just answer whatever questions you guys come up with. So feel free to drop them into the chat box. Again, my name is Mike Roberts, founder of San Diego Code School, sit on a board of a few organizations. Super proud of my San Diego JavaScript community out there making things happen. And I want to start off by talking a little bit about a couple topics, and then we'll just jump in and start answering questions. I've already seen a few come through. You can also email me questions. You can email me at mike@stcs.io. Don't send me any spam, but be sure to shoot me questions. I'll try and check that before we bounce and make sure we answer all those questions as well. So a couple things that came up over the course of the week that I wanted to kind of share and talk about. I took some notes this week. And the first one, actually last night, I was on LinkedIn looking at some posts about some job stuff. And one of the topics that came up was recruiters and recruiters, let's say, behaving inappropriately, like asking people super early on. Someone was talking about how they got a job, and then a recruiter called them and said, "Congratulations. Are you interested in changing jobs and coming to work for us?" And he's like, "Bro, I just got a job. What are you talking about?" But sure enough, if you've been in the space as long as I have, then you know that some recruiters are relentless. And I've literally gotten calls my first week on the job like, "Hey, you want to come work for X, Y, and Z?" And I was like, "Nah, I just got a job." And they're like, "Oh, okay, cool. Do you know so and so that works at the company?" I'm like, "Yeah, he works right next to me." Like, "Hey, can you pass my information on so that I can connect with him?" I'm like, "No, man, I'm not going to help you poach someone my first week on the job. That sounds like a terrible idea." So some recruiters are ruthless. So I would say here's a pro tip. First pro tip of the day: always use a burner number on your resume. What I mean by that is get a Google Voice number, or you have a separate line and a different number that you use. I've had the same phone number for like the last, I don't know, 15 years. And so I, generally speaking, do not put that number on a resume at all, ever, because as soon as it's out there in the ether and you get a job, you're not going to want people calling you. I would average 3 to 5 calls a week, someone calling and literally asking me, and it's super disruptive because you're trying to get work done and people are calling you and asking you like craziness. Like, they have no idea that like the place that they're asking you is like 500 miles from where you live, or the technology stack is different. So it's kind of a distraction. It's not nearly as helpful as you might think. And so early on, if you're not cognizant of it, you throw your phone number on a resume, it's going to be out there for like the next oodles of years. So you definitely want to like put a burner number on there so that as soon as you get a job, you're not being distracted by people constantly calling you and asking you, "Do you want to work somewhere else?" Because it's not fun, believe it or not. So super hard to get your first opportunity to get a foot in the door. But once you get a foot in the door, you're gonna be fine for the rest of your career as long as you're a good person. If you're a terrible person, then it's gonna be tough. But if you're a good person and you can grow and get better every day, you're gonna have plenty of work and have a consistent way to earn a living once you have the skill of being a software engineer. So I would just like leave that caveat out there. It's really, really tough the first time, but after that, it's much, much easier. So, and annoying to the point where you have to use a burner number. If you're not, you're messing up. Rule number one: burner phone. Second thing I want to talk about is debugging. This is often a skill that folks when they're doing a lot of code challenges may overlook. And that's why I think one of the secrets is working on projects and passion projects so you can get really good at debugging. Some folks will give you debugging type code challenges in an interview, and so you should be prepared to walk through what your process is, and it should make sense. This is one of the key skills that you're going to need to have on the job in order for you to be successful as a software engineer is debugging skills. So you need to practice them. And that's why you should be working on passion projects. You should be always be coding so you get as much experience debugging as anything else. Two things you're going to do the most as a software engineer are reading other people's code and debugging. You will not be writing new features nearly as much as you do those first two things, reading other people's code and debugging. So get really good at those two skills. The last tip that I'll add at the top, and then I'll stop and just start answering questions. I'll get off my soapbox. Is that you should be committing your code daily. So this will reinforce that habit of being on projects, building things, always getting your work out there, but consistently committing so that when someone goes to your GitHub, they see green streaks and they know they're looking at a coder. They're looking at someone that enjoys writing software and is not going to have a problem sitting down at the keyboard every day and banging out solutions to problems. That's what they're looking for. Hiring managers are looking for people that can solve problems. It's just problem solving. Businesses have problems. They need people to write software to fix them or solve them. So I'm going to jump in and again, my name is Mike Roberts. Throw a question inside of the comment box and I'd be more than happy to answer those questions. There's already a few that have come in, and so I'll rip right through those and then continue to answer them as you guys have them. So this is far more interesting if you guys actually challenge me with some questions. So feel free to drop them in there. And off we go. Question number 1. What is the most in-demand language for hiring managers? So my guess is that this is very market specific, but my guess is this is someone that's trying to decide what your second language is, hopefully, and not what the first thing is you should learn. These are different animals. So I'll start with that you probably early on it would be of most benefit for you to learn JavaScript. I know people are going to say, Python or, insert language here. But I think right now leveraging JavaScript, because it's the only game in town in terms of the browser, and because it is so flexible, you have different paradigms. So you can write code in a functional way. You can write code using classes and objects. So object oriented. There's just so many different ways that you can use the language, and you can learn so much. At the very beginning, I would focus there and strictly there. Just focus on getting really good at JavaScript. Then you can learn your second language. And I'd say the second language, in my opinion, should be Java or C#. It'll give you the most flexibility. You'll learn strong typing, and you'll learn the ability to, think about things in an object-oriented way, because those are primarily object-oriented languages. And it'll give you a good, broad skill set that you can then transition into any other language. It will be super easy for you to learn, like Ruby on Rails. So if you say, well, this city is a Ruby on Rails city, and all the jobs posted are Ruby on Rails. So should I learn Ruby and Ruby on Rails first? And be like, nope, don't think so. So I think you want to learn solid principles and foundations first, and then you can pick a language that's very specific. So if you know your personality type is that if you hate something, you will not get into it and you won't do it, then sure, start with Python. If that's what you really want to learn, master Python. But if you're in it for the long game and you want to be successful over time, I'd say start with a solid foundation of JavaScript and then pivot in whichever direction you want to go to from there. It will not take you that long, and you will use JavaScript for the rest of your life if you're a web developer, if you stay in web development, which is also, again, a great place to start. And then you can pivot and go off in a billion different directions. So that's my advice for what language you should learn. And it shouldn't be specific to what a hiring manager or job posting is saying, because for most jobs, they want to know that you have some core skills and not expertise in one specific language or domain for a junior engineering role, right? As a junior engineering role, they want to know that you have a high ceiling. Are you going to be able to pick things up quickly? Are you going to be nimble and be able to be coached? Those are skills that are far more valuable than a very specific language or framework. And if that's not reflected in the posting or the conversations you're having with the hiring managers, it's probably not a place that's going to support you well as a junior engineer. you probably will be better off working at a company that's a little bit better at the process of onboarding and training early career developers. So, second question is, who should I reach out to when a job is posted on the company website? So HR, it says, okay, so I would say rather than just blindly reaching out to the HR person, which in most cases is not going to be successful, they might respond to you and say, got it, got your resume, thanks, appreciate it. You're going to have a better chance of success if you can find internal champions. And that is not usually the HR folks. It is usually the folks that are a little bit closer to the engineering team and folks that are decision makers in the actual final who's going to get hired, who are they going to take a pass on. So if you can find, if it's a really large organization, then you want to find folks really close to the team or on the team, right? Because they can be great internal champions, folks that know you, know a little bit about you, and are willing to advocate on your behalf throughout the hiring process. So could be as simple as an engineer that's on the team, and the company might have a referral program. So when an employee refers another employee, oftentimes you'll get like a bonus or a perk if they make it past like 90 days, right? You might get like bonus on your check, or you might get some other incentive. So there is some value in, if you know a candidate is really strong and you work at a company, saying, hey, I think we should hire X, Y, or Z person. Also, a lot of jobs are spread internally first, and the company, to save on posting the job, might just tell the engineers, hey, if you know anybody, we're going to open up this position, tell all your friends to apply for this role, right? And so that like friend network is pretty strong. And so even if you're not a friend, if you can create a relationship with people inside of companies, then when those openings arise, you might be able to just drop in and be like, hey, remember me? I'm super interested in the role that you guys just posted. And again, if you've developed a relationship, that person might vouch for you and say, you know what, I'm going to throw your name in the hat. Make sure you submit your application, and I'll make sure that it gets to the right person. Cool points here. You, as an engineer inside an organization, you can usually bypass one of the first steps, which is like the screening of the resume step, if somebody inside the organization refers you. And it should make sense that when someone refers you, they don't want to burn that employee of the company and tell them, well, we're not going to interview your buddy. Instead, it's almost like an automatic phone screening. Like you're going to get to that first base because the company wants to make sure all referrals at least get some level of attention so that they keep their employees happy, right? I'm not going to refer you a lot of my friends if you're not even going to interview them, right? You're not even going to talk to them. I'm going to stop after like the second time, be like, hey, first two people I recommended you talk to, you didn't talk to. So I'm not going to give you anybody else. I'm not going to embarrass my folks. So keep that in mind. That could be super useful for you when you develop that relationship. It could mean that you automatically bypass what might automatically like screen you out, which is maybe not the strongest experience on your resume, or nothing that really hooks the HR person, who's usually the first person you have to convince to get your resume onto the stack to get a phone screening. So then you get phone screening. Then from the phone screening, you might automatically get an on-site sometimes. So we kind of had a rule at some of the shops I used to work at. If someone refers someone, they get a phone screening, and unless they bomb the phone screening, they automatically are going to get an on-site. So it really could be to your advantage to have internal champions that want you to get an opportunity to come in and have conversations. That's it. There's no guarantee you're going to get a job. It's not that easy, but you do definitely want to get that opportunity to like have a conversation and go beyond just like submitting your resume and then waiting for some kind of response. Appreciate being live, Marcello or Marcelo. We got to get together too. I want to get on your podcast. So we got to have a conversation. I love the support. So next question, what is the best way to prepare the day before a technical interview? So my recommendation is you're way behind. So get some rest, right? Carb up. There's really not much you can do the day before, right? There are some tactics that I would say, you should focus and spend your time. One would be coding. So spend some time coding the day before. You're not trying to cram. This isn't like an exam where you're trying to like memorize some flashcards. Spend some time coding so that your brain is kind of in the mode where the syntax is not like going to be super rusty if they ask you to actually write some code. The other thing, Hey, Samita, good to see you as well. The other thing is you want to make sure that you are researching the company. So make sure it's fresh in your mind when you're talking to them, what their company does, what value could you bring to the table for this company, how maybe some of your past experiences provide some additional context and some additional sort of special sauce that makes you different than the next candidate. What's your superpower, right? If they ask you that question, you should be able to say, this is what you're really, really good at. And this is how it could benefit the organization. So take some time to like frame what you're going to use as your like hook, why you're unique the day before the interview. That's about all. There's no time for you to, cram on algorithms and get stronger on that stuff. It's really a situation where you have to put the time in ahead of time to get up to the level of skill where that's going to matter. But for a lot of junior engineers, they really just want to see, are you motivated? Are you coachable? Right? Do you have some fundamental skill? And like, how do you separate yourself from the rest of the pack? And knowing the company and knowing what to do is awesome. If you've got the time, you should definitely take some time to like dive in deep and really understand some of the problems in the space that they're in. Maybe work on a passion project that uses the same technology. And when you show up to the interview, bring something with you that you can show that you built and it's of high quality and it's something that could like leverage the same technology. And so you're familiar with what it would take to be successful inside the organization and have a plan. Here's my plan for 30, 60, 90 days on the job. This is what I would expect to be doing. These are the kinds of things, ways I think I could add value as a junior engineer. And that sort of like assertive forward thinking is a great way for you to prove that you're the right fit, right? There's no reason for them to interview anybody else. You're the person for this job. So keep that in mind day before, right? Mentally focus yourself on how do I close, right? You're selling yourself, you're selling your skill set. How do I close the deal with this particular company? Know the company really well, right? That's the easiest thing that you could be doing. Look at their feed on LinkedIn. See what they're talking about, right? What are their big initiatives? How could you help them solve the problems that they're trying to solve, right? And that's the best thing that you can do day before. So for those of you that are on LinkedIn Live, love the support, appreciate it. It's pretty amazing, pretty fantastic to finally be on LinkedIn. I've been trying. I had to apply like 3 times, but it's all right. What I do really enjoy about this opportunity is it's going to kind of allow more people to ask questions. And if you have a question, throw it in the chat box. More than happy to spend my Tuesday morning with y'all just figuring out how can I help you get that much closer to your first opportunity. Because once you get that first one, it's game over. You're going to be fine. As long as you're a decent human being, right? Show up to work every day. You're going to be fine after you get that first gig. So should I get a certification or certificate is a question that just came through. So excuse me, certificate or certification depends. So if you're in, let's say, the IT space and you're looking to get a job as a desktop support technician, it's almost a given that the first thing you have to have is an A+ certification, and that's going to really help prove that you have the foundational knowledge to be able to do desktop support. Is an A+ certification going to get you into a software engineering role? Nope, no chance. Is a certificate or certification going to get you an opportunity to get into a shop as a software engineer if it's like specific to a particular like Microsoft certified systems engineer or developer, right? Sure, maybe, but I wouldn't bet on that being the determining factor. I have an MCSE from like Windows 2000, so that's what, 20 years ago. I've got an MC, got all the like a lot of the other MCs that led up to that. So the database one, etc. I've got A plus, an INET. I got Cisco, CCNA, a Novell certification. That was a thing. Haven't used any of them. I haven't configured a Windows server since I got that certificate 20 years ago. So I don't know that adds a lot of value if you're not going to go into that space. If you are going to go into that space and that's what you really want to do, so you want to do database administration, you want to do network administration, you want to move into DevOps, could be a good way of proving that you have the requisite skill set. So taking those AWS certification exams or having domain specific knowledge on something like ServiceNow or Salesforce, definitely a way where you can show that you have requisite knowledge, but it's not the end all be all. I know somebody that used to go out and get certificates and then say, now I want to ask for like $150,000 because that's what people that have the certificate earn. I'm like, nah, bro, it doesn't work that way. So the certificate will definitely help show that you have the knowledge, but it's not going to mean you're going to be able to demand a high salary or the people will be banging down the doors to get a hold of you. It's just one of those extra pieces that makes you a stronger candidate than someone that has no way to demonstrate their capacity, right? So sure, like learn Kubernetes, get a certificate in Kubernetes, but don't think that that's going to be the silver bullet, that one thing that's going to like make it super easy for you to just like get interviews, because it's not going to happen. It's just not the process. So once again, I'm answering your questions live. I do this every Tuesday. We start at 7 a.m. Pacific. So if you want a job, you got to treat it like it's a job. You got to get up early. You got to get on the interwebs. You got to ask your questions, and help is here. Help is available. You just have to be willing to like do the work. If you put the work in, you're coding every day, you are going to be fine, right? It'll be absolutely easy. So, I got more of a statement, less of a question about drafting curriculum around front-end masters, Udemy, books and documentation. Sure, there's a lot out there. There's a ton of ways that you can level your skill set up. I would caution folks that you want to try and find a curated path. So we've been trying to create some of those, and they're free. But the idea is go through something like a free code camp and actually look and see how it's structured, so that you're not overdoing it. One of the things that self-taught developers tend to do is they tend to go way deeper on like really like odd topics, only because there's no filter. There's nobody to tell you like, okay, that's fine. You've gone deep enough there. You're not going to use all the rest of that knowledge for like the next couple of years. So it's great. But sometimes you can tell you're dealing with a self-taught developer because they'll be super deep in one area and then they'll have zero knowledge of something else that might be like really important. So I'd always say, when you're brand new and you have a sample size of like teaching only one person how to code, and that is yourself, just know it might be less efficient than following what might be out there already. And there are great free resources that actually give you the whole track. I'm not as big of a fan of like Udemy because it's like kind of driven by the individual that's trying to market a course. It's like, this is the ultimate guide to front end or back end or full stack development. Like, who knows what the quality of that is? But like App Academy has got a great free program that you can go through. Team Treehouse is pretty good, although there's a paid subscription model, so it costs a little bit. The other one that I'm real big on is Free Code Camp, right? Great curriculum, vetted by lots of people. And so I would say be judicious and try not to go all over the place, and instead focus on, if someone has created a curated path that other people are having success with, that might be a better place for you to invest your time. And I know this was just a statement about creating your own path, but oftentimes it's worth it to just ask. Like, shoot me an email and be like, hey, here's my plan for what I'm going to study. I'm more than happy to go through that and be like, okay, don't go too deep on this because you're not going to use that for a while. Instead, focus some attention and make sure you don't miss X, Y, and Z. So reach out to like senior engineers, talk to them at meetups and find out, like, is your path going to be less efficient? Because that's all this is about. It's like efficiency. It's not a waste, right? You're going to learn things that you just might not be able to apply like right away. It's going to take you a while before you hit that again in production, and you have to then use the knowledge. Like, I can tell you, I used to know how to subnet like the back of my hand, but like I haven't had the subnet in like, I don't know, 2 decades. So like learning that is great, but not something I'm going to drill on every day. So, next question. How do I meet the experience requirements without a job? That's a tough one. And so often people will say, well, it's a catch-22. The way I view it is this: you have an opportunity to display and demonstrate what your capacity is. You can demonstrate your experience, build projects, work on passion projects, work on things that are of interest to you. And this is often one that comes up, is people will ask, should I freelance? Should I work on projects pro bono and for free? I'd say probably not. I'd say focus on things that you can do that add value for you, that you think are interesting, and you can put them on your portfolio and you can demonstrate your skill. And they should be short projects that you can finish in less than a week. Definitely should be something you can finish in 3-4 days, and you can get it set up on continuous deployment so that it automatically deploys every week and or every time you like update your code. So you push it to GitHub, it automatically deploys, it runs your tests. You got badges on your GitHub, so you can kind of show that you're ready for the production workflow. And that's, I think, a stronger signal to hiring managers than, hey, I contributed to this open source project. Here's the one contribution that I made, or here's the project that I worked on Elance or some freelance website, right? It's a little bit harder for you to go deep on those. And plus, you're just not as invested in something where you're doing it for not a whole lot of cash, but instead you're doing it just kind of like because you have to. So I would say focus on passion projects, things that you're going to really be excited to sell and talk about when you're at an interview. And when you go into the interview, bring your computer, be willing to open it up, take a look at some of your code. It's a great way for you to share what your experience is. So that's how you meet that experience requirement without the job. When they say this job requires 1 or 2 years of experience, remember, those are always wish lists. If you feel like you meet 50%, 60% of the requirements for the job, go for it, apply for it. Worst case scenario is they say no. Best case scenario is you start having a conversation with them and they say, you know what, we think you're sharp. We'd like to have you come in and we'd love to give you an opportunity to get better with us and grow alongside of us. So, if you are just joining us, we do this every week. I answer questions, or at least I try to. And these are generally for folks that are looking for your first software engineering role, so early career folks. And the best way to get them to me is to either put them into the chat channel or send me an email, mike@sdcs.io. Sometimes we go for as long as an hour, but the questions are rather thin today and not happening very quickly. So I'm feeling we're going to end early. But does anybody else have any other questions? I'll give you guys a little bit because there's a little lag with the interwebs. But best place, again, is to drop them into the chat. But I'm going to go do a quick circle of my email and make sure that in the middle of all these like spam emails I get every morning, there's no questions. Got a lot of email in the morning. Newsflash, terrible time to send me email because I ignore 90% of them. I don't see anything here. Good. This is success. This means I've answered the questions and we're doing good. Hey, Steve, like you checking in. Appreciate that. So Facebook and YouTube, your engagement not nearly as nice as LinkedIn. So like, thank you, LinkedIn. Let's see, what else do we got? Hey, Muffin, how are you? Man, I'm getting a lot of LinkedIn action this morning. Love it. This is great. So we do this every Tuesday. So I'm super excited to like see the level of engagement and have people coming in and asking questions. This is what I'm here for. This is to help you get that question answered, get that, first foot in the door and start that career. So wish that this was an option when I there was no LinkedIn when I was a kid. So, hey everybody, again, thank you so much for your support. Unless we have other questions, we're about to wrap. We're about to end this thing. So I'll give one quick shout out to a lot of the work that I'm doing is centered around providing opportunities for folks to learn how to become software engineers. And one of the biggest barriers for people is it's really unaffordable for a lot of folks to go to, San Francisco and be at a code boot camp for 4 months and then have to start at square one and make up for like the lost wages of 4 months, as well as be out there searching for a job. So what we've created in San Diego is an apprenticeship program. And so the folks that are accepted into the program get paid. We pay them $18 an hour to start, and they get up to $20 an hour within the first year. They get a year of paid experience, plus they get to go through the same program that we used to charge more than $10,000 for, and it's no cost. There are no strings attached, so you don't owe anything. You don't have to go work for any particular employer. It's really an opportunity for folks to get a chance to learn the skills, get experience over the course of a year, and then we match them up with employers and give them an opportunity to get into what our goal is to get into large organizations. So there's some great partners. If you know anybody that's interested in starting a career, feel free to have them check out the website, sdcs.io. We are not currently running a cohort, like a new cohort. We'll probably do one in the fall. But if you are interested, go ahead and sign up. That way, when we do open up a cohort, we're more than happy to reach out to you and let you know this is what you would need to do to qualify for it. And then the employer side of things, if you are an employer and you're looking for a way to diversify your pipeline, we really focus on providing opportunities for women, Black, Latinx, neurodiverse, LGBTQ individuals that are traditionally overlooked and don't have the same opportunities to get into 4-year CS degree. And we're really trying to create a pathway for people that are skilled through alternative routes. So that's my passion. That's what I do. As the last part of what I explained might sound to your ears, it's not something where I make a ton of money doing this. And so this isn't the sales pitch. This is really us trying to change the narrative about how you source diverse talent and how you go about creating a model that's a little bit more, let's say, resilient than our current educational model, right? There's a lot of flaws in our current education system. So we want to be able to prove that there is an alternative pathway, and it's thousands of years old, and it's successful in lots of other career paths, like the folks that are carpenters or masons or plumbers or a variety of other trades like welders. And we believe, or at least I believe, and I've put my money up to support the apprenticeship pattern for technical roles so that we can get more of these well-paying careers and get people into a position where they can earn and be able to support their family and be able to represent more of the audience for a lot of these software products, right? So the audience is there. We need to make sure that there's representation on the shop floors writing software so that we can surprise and delight folks that look like me, right? So that's my spiel. Thanks again for joining and asking your questions, and I will be back next week to do the same thing. We'll go as long as we need to or until 8. So today, because we don't have any more questions, we're going to end here. And again, I appreciate all the support.